Alright, so the very first step is to make a new empty layer that you're going to put your planet on. And that way, you know, if you put it on the star layer, you put it on the background layer, then you won't be able to move the planet around. So we want that new empty layer. And then you're going to use the elliptical marquee tool up here. And you're going to draw a circular selection. Do hold shift when you do it so that you don't make an egg shape. You can make the planet whatever size you want. And then next you're going to pick a base color for that planet. So you're going to go into your color picker and you can choose really any color you want. You can have earthy looking planets, not that they would be earthy, but you know, natural looking ones. You can have planets that are really bright colors, whatever you want. And then use your paint bucket tool to paste into. And that paint bucket is located under the gradient tool. The last thing we used was gradient, so that's probably active. Make sure you're at 100% so you have a nice solid color. And then for your opacity, and then paint. Now notice I have little dots right here. That's because my layer for my planet is under my stars. So if I don't want to see those, I could turn the stars off, or I can raise that so that it's on top. The next step is to put texture on that circle space. And to do that, you need to choose a brush that has a texture to it. So you want a little dotted texture probably. If you haven't loaded any, there's some default ones, or you could go to load and you can choose amongst, I would pick maybe faux finish or what else? Dry media. That's like chalk or charcoal. That's going to give you a bumpy surface. Those would be good to load. Just remember when you go to load them, go in and choose append instead of OK. So it doesn't replace your brushes, it just adds to. Now once you pick a bumpy looking brush of some sort, you're going to want that to be probably really large, and you can adjust the size here in your slider, or I think the easy way to do that is actually to use your bracket keys. So I'm going to use the right bracket and I'm going to raise that size up. And then I'm going to pick a contrasting color of some sort to paint that texture on. I could go darker or lighter in the same color. I could pick a value of it, or I could do a completely different color. There's no right or wrong there. And then right now my opacity on my brush is really low, so if I want it to be really dark, I'll raise those opacity and flow up to 100, and I'm just going to click. The more I click, the more solid it's going to go. So I'm starting to get a nice surface there. I'm going to do that with a few colors. So I'll go in and I'll pick different colors or different shades. I can choose different brushes to get those different surfaces. And then I'm just going to dab that on to get a texture. Alright, now once you have your planet texture painted, then you're going to run a filter on it. And it's a filter called Spherize, and what it does is it'll wrap the texture around a sphere shape. So it's going to make your circle right now that looks really flat, it's going to make it look 3D. So here's how you do it. You go to Filter, you go to Distort, and then you choose Spherize. So I'm going to pause there a moment so you can see where that is. Filter, Distort, Spherize. Now, once you're into Spherize, I would recommend clicking the little minus button, which is going to zoom you out so that you can see the whole planet. And then raise the slider all the way up to 100. So see, we started flat. As we spherize around, notice it's making that round shape. And then you say OK. Now you could spherize more than once if you want to. It's kind of up to you whether you like the look of this or you want to go a little farther with it. And to do that, you're just going to do the same thing. Filter, distort, spherize. Although this time I wouldn't do 100%. I'll zoom out. I'd probably go a little less with it. So now I've got that wrap of my texture. The next step is to put in the lighting to it, the shading. So when you have something that's three-dimensional, like a sphere, it's going to catch light. And so you're going to have highlighted areas, you're going to have shadowed areas. And to make it look really believable, we want to actually put those in. Two ways to do it. The first way is painting the shadow on. The second way is letting the computer do it through the use of a layer style. I'm going to show both, so you can try both. So first we're going to make an empty new layer for the painted shadow. We're going to choose black in our color picker. We're going to choose our brush. This way, because we made an empty layer, if we mess up, we won't ruin our planet. You're going to choose, instead of a texture brush, we want a soft fuzzy brush. So just pick one of these round fuzzy ones. And then I'd make it maybe about 150 pixels. We're going to drop the opacity down, and we're going to drop the flow down. Oh, I'd say about maybe in the 30s would be good. Then we're going to paint along the side of a planet and just kind of imagine you're tracing in a C shape along one edge. You can watch me first and then you can try it. So I'm just going across and around, across and around. The more I do that, the darker that shadow is going to appear. Now if you go too much, you can actually just adjust the opacity here and make it less. So that's kind of a nice way, thing you can do since the shadow's separate. So that's painting a shadow on. Some people like to put highlights on the planets too, and for that you would just choose probably a yellowy kind of color, maybe kind of a cream. And with low opacity, you'd paint to the other side. And you'd kind of add a little bit of highlight there. So I've done that on a separate layer. You could do each of those separately. That might be smart. That way if you mess up, you don't have to start over with it. Alright, now let's see how the computer does it. So I'm going to turn off my shadow. I'm going to go to the planet layer again. So I'm going to make the planet active, so it's highlighted blue. I'm going to double click to get the layer style box. And I'll move it so I can still see that planet. And then I'm going to click inner shadow. I'm going to click the box. You need the word to be selected too, so click the word inner shadow so that it's highlighted blue. Then raise the distance up here in the slider. And so that's making that C shape that we painted. Next, I'm going to raise size up. And that's going to go in and it's going to add the softness that's going to make it look like a believable shadow. I can also adjust my angle here with this. I could go in and I could also, if I wanted, make a planet that's going to look more like the sun, or a planet that shines brightly. Let me show that as well. That would be taking off the shadow and going into inner glow. And I'm going to raise an inner glow up. And right now I have kind of a gold yellowy cream color, I could also choose my own color by clicking and choosing it. So if I raise the choke up on the inner shadow and then raise the size up, maybe I'll lower choke so it's a little softer, I get an inner glow to that planet. An outer glow could also look kind of good. So I'll spread up a little, and then I'm going to raise the size up so I can have the planet glow in that way. So shadows are going to be planets, that don't shine, or you could always go with a shiny planet if you want to. I would maybe not do too many shiny planets, but it's something that would be nice to do, maybe for at least one. Now, one last thing. When you do have a shadow chosen, or in any of these effects, there's a little box that says use global light. If that box is checked, any planet you make, if you adjust the angle of the effect, it's going to change on all of them. So if you have 5 planets on 5 different layers, if this box is checked, when you adjust the angle, they will all change. So if that's something you want, just click that box. If you don't want that to happen, just unclick it. And then, they won't change independently.